There you go. You're live.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the September meeting of the Audit Committee. Let's have a roll call. It looks like Alderwoman Tierney, Alderwoman Pendel Charles, Alderman Payon, Jim Cardillo are all committee members who are present, along with Al Kirshner. We are joined by the City Finance Director. Wait a minute, just got something from Dave. Having problems with my computer. I'll join in a few moments. Okay. The first order of business is the agenda, approval of the review and approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for Monday, September 21st.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Just a moment, I lost my agenda here. There it is. Okay. Review of the minutes from the July 20th meeting. We got those some time ago, close to July the 20th, actually. I've reviewed them, but do I hear a motion?
I
Motion to approve the minutes from the July 20th meeting.
second. Thank you, Kim.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
Old business. The RFP from the Department of Transportation and Planning and Zoning. We need to discuss that. I think we left that we were a little bit up in the air as to what exactly we wanted. Jody, I assume that there's nothing really to report on that. Is that correct?
Correct. It's drafted as per our draft from a few months ago, and we're just waiting to hear if you want to do that or something else.
Okay, that's my exact recollection. Al, did you fall off your chair?
I did not.
Okay. I've just got your lovely countenances. There we go. Okay. Well, what anybody want to discuss? What do we want in the RFP? I think the issue is whether we wanted a more detailed audit or wanted to go with the same thing we had for the rec and parks. Yes, Ellie, Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The DOT, the Department of Transportation, I don't know when our data date will be, but due to COVID, there is the funding and the influx of those funds, and so I think that would be very important to incorporate that. But I'm not sure of what our data date for this audit would be. But I think it should incorporate the COVID funding.
Okay.
Jody might have an idea.
I will say that we got two large pieces of funding from the CARES fund. One is the transportation and one is the other 4.2 million that we got through the county. And both of them are going to be subjected to single audit procedures through our annual audit, meaning they're large grants and they're probably going to be selected for detailed testing. So they will be a part of that audit. If you wanted to if you wanted to incorporate that in some more detail, we could. We get it on a reimbursement basis, meaning they have to report all their operating expenses for a quarter. And if they don't have enough operating funds to cover that quarter, they draw down from the Maryland Department of Transportation. So it's after the fact, and it's not cash coming in. as a matter of fact, talking about the receipts, Rec and Parks programs are significantly smaller now. They're running limited schedules, different schedules. So even trying to work on their cash receipts process is going to be a little bit different. But we can talk about that when we get further down the agenda.
Okay, so that answers my question, that it's being audited because of the grant stipulation. So that should, I feel that should be sufficient. I don't want to double efforts at all.
A question.
All right, Jim?
If we were to look at what areas of focus an internal audit department would have on the Department of Transportation, what would typically be the things that the internal audit function would do with, say, the Department of Transportation? Do we have any sort of suggestions there, or what would be their focus? Obviously, we don't want to duplicate the efforts of external auditors.
Jody, can you answer that?
Yeah, so I could only talk about the cash receipt and cash processing aspect of the bus fares, people getting on the bus paying cash, that kind of thing. You had been discussing various operating audit type issues and performance related metrics. So if you wanted to get into something like that, I would not be able to give you expert advice as to what kind of operational type metrics you may review in an audit to see if they're performing adequately. Because I don't know a lot about the transportation business.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out right now. What are the two types of audits that we've talked about doing? One of them is we did already for Park and Recs, but what's the more detailed audit? What is the term?
Like
Performance audit.
Performance audit.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I think what the performance audit, if I don't want to steal Mr. Kirshner's thunder, but would look more at benchmarking the department against some predetermined objectives. So whatever the objectives of the director were at the beginning of the examination period, determining if the department met those operational objectives. Some of them are financial based, some of them are non-financial.
Operational.
Thank you.
Okay.
You would look at operational objectives as well as financial and internal controls over cash.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Kirshner.
I had sent you a proposal on doing performance audits back in July.
Yes.
I mean, none of us were, I'm sorry.
Why don't you explain to the board members?
Well, I've been going in a different direction for a long time. And one of the things I think we need to do as a foundational activity is see if our agencies are postured to perform. Do they have program managers? Do they have objectives? How do they track their progress? Are they having regular meetings to review performance? The kinds of things you see in the Baldridge Performance Excellence Program at the national and state levels. I think I sent you my outline. I know I've shared it with lots of people in the past about what are your metrics, who do you benchmark against? And I think those are the fundamental things that we should start with this year and not dive into another audit. I was not impressed with the first audit, not because they did a bad job, but I felt like it was our first time out of the gate. We got the things we asked for, but I'm not convinced that couldn't have been found out by any alert department head. I mean, it's just, I was not impressed with the granularity and the sophistication of the findings. But anyhow, I'd like you to look at what I proposed to you. I gave some attachments, I believe. I don't have the email to you at my fingertips, but we also asked in July for the performance metrics for the budget year. And I can't find that I received those. Does anybody have those?
I don't know that they were sent out.
Okay, well,
Every department has, different goals, different
right,
different metrics, and
right.
I'm quite certain that I didn't send those
Well,
out.
those are in the budget book, the operating budget book.
Well, we asked for them and they were promised that they would send them to us. So, I mean, if that's what you want us to do, then, A, let us know, and B, where's the budget book? I mean, you just need to start looking at what these, what the city departments have promised to do with the money that they're appropriated. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you can certainly look at my budget book.
Well, and I'll be glad to send them to you. I'm trying to think if we have them all pulled together in one document separately. It would have been incorporated by the council into the code in the spring. So that maybe there we look at the code and see if we can find that attached.
It's in the minutes that I asked for them. And I believe the city manager said he'd have them to us in about a week.
Okay, all right, well, we can definitely get those to you. I see Alderwoman Tierney has a question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to reconcile, just so we're all on the same page, that we have pending legislation 03720, which is a very lengthy document of all the performance standards of the respective departments. I know that we just reviewed the housing ones in our housing committee, but wouldn't we want to marry this audit up to those? Do you know what I'm talking about, Jody? The performance standard legislation. I'm trying to share my screen with it. It's an ordinance 03720. I don't know how to do that. I thought I could do this, but anyways, we don't have to. The performance standards exist. Is my
You're saying it's passed, correct?
no, I believe it's still in committee.
Oh, okay. I thought that those were considered last spring, but I couldn't remember.
I thought it had also, Jody.
Let me see. Hold on. I'm looking at it now. Annual performance standards. It was on the agenda September 14th. Anyways, my point is that
That's it.
they
I think that was on the consent calendar.
is that
Yeah.
okay?
Right, it is, yes. Yep, it's being considered now.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
A lot
Well,
of them are performance.
Al, I will get that to you,
Yeah.
a copy of that legislation, in addition to what the city manager has promised. Apologies should have been provided by now.
And Mr. Chairman, I probably don't need what you're going to send me, but I don't want you to go to an effort that, let's see what the city manager sends. And once we look at that, if we need more, I'll ask. Thank you.
Apologies, the council was, we're dormant for the month of August, and I think that's probably an explanation, not an excuse, but perhaps that's why you don't have in your hands what you had requested. We'll see if we can't remedy that. What's the bottom line on what kind of an RFP we want? Do we want a performance audit? Do we pick one of these two? I guess the RFP goes out to both departments, planning and zoning, and the Department of Transportation, and we see how much it's going to cost, and then decide which one, if either, that we want to go and have audited. Does that seem reasonable?
Chairman, what I can do is I can send everybody the email I sent you, and we can all consider that and get back to you by email.
Okay.
I mean, my idea was we take the goals and objectives and the performance metrics testified to or presented by the departments in the budget process, that we pick a half a dozen of them, call those department heads in and see how they're doing. And that was my proposal to you. Let me send that out. I'll take that as an action item.
Yeah.
I'll get it out.
I apologize. I could not find that quickly when you mentioned it a few
All right.
moments ago.
I'll
But
get
I'm
that out.
like
at the end.
Ellie, I'm kind of juggling two different things here.
All right, I will get that out at the end of the week. I'm out of pocket the rest of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Kirschner. Thank you very much. Any further discussion or ideas? Are we looking at a performance audit, at a same type of audit that we had last time? Well, I'm with Al. I was okay with the last audit that we got. We got what we asked for. And I think the job was reasonably well done, but I'm not sure that I can justify that kind of expense without being able to demonstrate that real money-saving recommendations have been made, or somebody has said there's nothing to be done, which is not the nature of the last audit that we had. But hey, I'm one vote. What do you guys think? Jim, you do this for a living?
I think Jody had a question or a comment first, so I defer
Jody.
first. And I yield and then I'll speak.
No, it was going towards the last audit. In August, Jim had sent us a grid about the findings to fill out. Mr. Cardillo had sent us a grid regarding that former audit. And Director Trader and I are still working on solutions. I've given him the grid and we talked a couple times about what he should consider implementing. But in the meantime, we've had a complete shutdown of recreation and they put in a new pool. So there's been a lot of changes over there. And I have not gotten the document back from him to try to kind of formalize it and get it back to you on the findings. There may be some money saving. I would say money saving only because you tighten up controls and you prevent somebody from taking the funds that doesn't have the authority to do it. So,
Well, Jim's done a lot of work on that, and a little farther down in the agenda, we'll talk about the implementation of the recommendations. If you don't mind, we'll put it off for a couple. Well, actually, that's next on the agenda.
no,
Yeah,
but you keep talking about the results of that type of audit and if it was meaningful or not. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not meaningful and we won't reap some benefit because of the findings. It's just a matter of getting them implemented now to the extent we can to tighten up controls over the cash handling at Rec and Parks.
Well, okay.
Exactly. And yeah, just to piggyback off of what Jody was saying is we've received some information from an outside source about this type of audit. If we were to go out and request the same type of audit for a different department without considering the recommendations from the first audit, they're going to have kind of the same findings that the other auditors had on the first department. So it's really just a replication there. Until we're able to absorb, report one, implement what's important, pass on what isn't. I think to go out and get a second type, a second version of the same type, that's a waste of our resources.
All right. Just a moment, Alderwoman Tierney. I'll get to you in a second. Well, so you suggest basically that we wait. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
If the decision amongst the committee is we want to go with this internal audit of cash handling procedures as the P&Z or the DOT option, let's just wait until we've worked our way through the first audit report. If we elect to go with a performance-based audit, then full speed ahead, because it's not necessarily going to replicate the same type of work that was done in audit number one.
Okay. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, I just, I don't think the RFP as prepared is addressing Mr. Kirshner's concerns about a performance-based audit. So,
I think that sounds very reasonable, Jim. Very reasonable.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I think we gotta rework the RFP to determine, you know, to create the right ask, if that's what we want. But I don't think, I don't think throwing limited resources of what we have available towards another same internal audit, cash controls, cash handling procedures type of work is valid right now until we've looked at the first report and implemented what some of the valid recommendations are. Because they may find the same holes or gaps that the first audit did. Please, Alderwoman Pendle-Charles.
No, I just want to add to that, as someone had mentioned earlier, and with the pandemic, that somewhat, as Jody indicated, complicates the matters with these audits. But I agree with Jim. Let's work through the first audit, find out what worked, what didn't, what seemed reasonable, in order to then proceed on the RFP for ADOT and planning and zoning. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
okay.
Concur.
Alderwoman-
Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Kearney.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Two things. Okay, so if I understand correctly, there's a an internal audit, which I think of as sort of means and methods and all that, which we've done for Parks and Recs. And so to follow up on Jim's suggestion, I would suggest, it's not a motion, but I would suggest that maybe the next meeting we would have his Excel spreadsheet, you know, on the screen and evaluate it accordingly. But
We have a detailed spreadsheet on the what?
don't we have, didn't you set up I thought you set up a Excel spreadsheet to.
Yes, I took the report, that the
Yes.
multiple pages that Zelenkowski prepared, and came up with every point that they said, here's the recommendation we have.
Right.
And there's 31 of them. And I said, here's all 31. And I'm asking city management to go through and say, yes, this is valid. No, this is not valid. If it's valid, you know, this is what we should do. I want to be able to say yes or no on each of these things. And how does it make us work better or smarter or more secure? Or no, this is a waste of time. Or what the firm is asking is just beyond our capacity. So
Right.
if yeah, that would be so let's just get through that, and then let's see if there are things that come out of that can make ADOT or P&Z operate better.
I agree.
Yeah, so we're sort of dissecting that and seeing what we can't follow through on. And so then if we do another one, we're like, we don't really need to look at that. But to backpedal to, and I'm glad City Manager Jarrell is here, on the performance thing, I think, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sort of biased about this because I'm more of a ratio numbers person, we have performance standards, and we haven't developed any real way of measuring them. And that's a big task. And we have the ordinance with all of the performance criteria. So in other words, I'm used to, you know, pouring concrete. How many man days did it take? You have the amount of concrete, and then you figure out how many labor hours and the efficiency ratios and all that stuff. So my question is, where does the city need help, and how could we help in translating these performance measures into numbers so we know if we're efficient in certain departments? I'm not sure if that's the objective, and I refer to the city manager on that. How do we help us help you, kind of? Do you understand, Sydney? I know you do.
I do. I do, yeah.
Morning, Dave.
Can I go ahead, Alderman Payon?
I said, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Yeah, sorry, I'm still having problems with my computer. It's not booting up. So now I'm on my smartphone. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but we'll see. So on performance measures, so all the performance measures actually have numerical goals for each of those. So the departments should be measuring and trying to reach whatever those performance standards are. I guess my view of how we need help with this. So I think our auditors should be looking at those and making sure that each of the departments is in fact measuring what their performance measures are and see how they're performing against the standards. And then I think the audit committee should sort of provide a quality assurance function in all of that to make sure that both the departments are doing what they should be doing, that is measuring those performance measures and striving to meet the standards, but also that our auditor who is hired is also checking those to make sure that there is oversight and that they're not just totally being ignored and that the departments are being allowed to just basically do what they want. And I also have that same function of making sure that the departments are trying to meet all their performance measures. But I think that's the role that the audit committee fills, is sort of Alderman Tierney mentioned construction, and I have a construction background as well. So we have, it's sort of analogous to the construction company is supposed to build in the quality in the project, right? So that's the performance standards that the department should be trying to meet. Normally you have a QC, a quality control function, either within the construction company or that the owner hires an owner's rep to make sure that you have quality control. And then you have a quality assurance function that just makes sure that whole system of quality is working properly. So I see you guys providing that quality assurance function of making sure that all of the steps in the performance measurement system are being followed by the departments and by the auditors, and that it's operating properly. So that's my view.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mr.
I
Kirsch.
just want to concur with the city manager's comments and also to Alderwoman Tierney. The departments provided their performance metrics, which inherently requires them to have, measurement capability in place, or at least put it in place after they're approved. So I believe the departments are probably working on that. I think the fact that the audit committee is coming down to start looking at that will certainly give impetus to seeing more activity. But as the city manager said, they're all supposedly working hard at this. With our limited budget, I think the biggest and most effective thing we can do is provide them assistance down at the ground level. And if they're struggling with something, how do you collect the data? How do you analyze it? Help us along. With $50,000 as our budget, we probably couldn't do much more than to get some assistance in to kind of hold their hand and show them the way. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, no, now he's got me intrigued with this whole construction analogy. Okay, so the department is basically the builder, if you will, right? And so then they have quality control standards. So they're responsible for that. They're responsible for that. That's, the department knows how they should run. And so we would be the quality assurance step to make sure that they are performing, but who ultimately reviews? I think that's you, I guess, to review if that efficiency is being met. Director Jarrell.
Yeah.
City Manager Jarrell.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think the performance measures have to be approved by council. And so we're still going through that process. The rule committee is looking at the performance measures. And at some point, each of the committees that are looking at it, environmental matters, looked at them as well and are going to take another look. But as soon as the committees are comfortable with the performance measures, then it'll go to the full council. And so that's just approval, not so much of how it's being carried out, but what the plan is. What are the performance measures? What are the standards that have to be approved by the council? So then once we're carrying them out, which we're doing, on a constant basis, and the departments are gathering data to indicate how they're doing against their standards. I think the auditors should be looking at those. The firm that we hire each year that works with Director Dickinson on all the financials as well. I think that they need to look at that process and see that the performance measures are, number one, the data is being gathered and maintained, and then how we're doing against the performance standards that we've set for ourselves. And again, so that's the quality control function. That's making sure that all the processes are all the tasks are being done properly. The audit committee is the quality assurance that looks at more its systematic approach, not the details of necessarily what the numbers are, but do we have a system in place for performance measures, and is it being carried out properly? Are the departments doing what they're supposed to be? And it'd be worthwhile for you all to call the department heads in occasionally and ask how that's going, and have them review the data that they're gathering and what the key performance measures are, and as well as making sure that the auditors are looking at this during the annual audit process that goes on.
I will say that it is not part of the standard annual financial audit to review performance measures and measure those and how we're doing. And if we do that, they're going to charge us extra. Just FYI, they can do that. I don't know how they work it into their opinion, but they would probably issue another opinion regarding those, which is exactly the same thing we'd be getting if we go out with an RFP for a separate audit on those things. That would be part of their normal work, of what they've agreed to do for us on an annual basis.
And maybe that's the better way to do it, is to have a separate auditor that we hire with an RFP do that. Either way, but I think we should have a firm that's looking at those.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to add that it's not 50,000. We took 25 away when we did our coronavirus reductions, when we were developing the 21 budget, and we have 25,000.
All right, Alderwoman Pendell Charles.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'd like to I'm kind of a person who stands back and listens, tries to analyze a situation. And of course, I've been on this committee since it was established. And I think we all can agree we've had a few bumps along the way. And I've been trying to kind of figure out why that is. I think I have this morning. I think some of it has to do, and this is my first opportunity to serve as a city councilwoman on a committee that has, and this is no disparagement, civilians versus city council persons. You have civilians on here who have a lot of expertise. This, like I said, is not my area. I get it as we go along, but I think that's been some of the challenges that we've had on moving through this committee. But this morning, I'm going to say this. City Manager Gerald is really the bridge between the civilian members and the city council members. And Ms. Dickinson is kind of the wing person. And so I think listening to them, at least from a city council standpoint, and then on the civilian side, listening to what they have to say, I think bodes us well. But I've been trying to kind of figure all of this out. And I think this morning with Mr. Gerald's input, I know I'm on the right track. And I think that's some of why we don't seem to be moving as smoothly as we do with many other committees. But like I said, this is my first time being on a committee, an ongoing committee with civilians as well as a council persons. So I think from that lens, I think we can move forward in on an easier direction. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, then I think we hold off. This is the sense of the committee.
Alderwoman Tierney has a question.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, 03620, City Manager Jarrell, is the legislation you're referring to, correct?
Correct.
Right. And I don't believe the Audit Committee is aware of that legislation and the respective attachments, et cetera. And that's basically the meat of all of this. So it's interesting because I don't know if that legislation is even going through the Audit Committee. Right?
So I think we need to take a look at it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we need to.
I agree. And it's probably not, because usually when these pieces of legislation are referred out, it seems like the Audit Committee is not one of those committees that these get referred to. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
No,
We've never had legislation referred to us.
Yeah, this one
I'll take care of that.
This should be, yeah.
I'll definitely take care of that.
But
Okay,
those
is there anything else on the RFP? That's what we started with here. We will defer that until next month. Kim, can you put it back on the agenda for next month? We'll see where we are and take it from there. The next item on the agenda is a follow-up to the Rec and Parks audit. Jim has worked hard to come up with a scorecard here, for lack of a better term, with the recommendations and what we have done to implement these, or at least it's our perhaps our way of keeping score. Jim, to me, this was incredible when I saw it. I think it's really a nice piece of work, and thank you for your efforts. If you will, Jim has come up with a summary of the recommendations from the Zelenkowski, a report, Axelrod report. There are 31. Does everybody have that? Does anybody have that? Don't everybody talk at once. Okay. Thank you, whoever did that. As you can tell, it goes one by one. It goes through what the recommendations were. It gives us the opportunity to comment on what the city's response is, and whether or not these have been implemented. There's nothing wrong with not implementing every single recommendation they had, because some of them are maybe not doable. Some of them perhaps we disagree with. But this does provide an excellent list of where we're going with this. Jim, you want to take it from here? Wait a minute.
He's,
Jim,
he's muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't have much to add. As you can tell, because even when I'm muted, there's nothing to say. No, all I was trying to do was take that massive report and get it down to a workable format that allows city management to work with, rather than wading through pages and pages. So distill it down to 31 bullets. Say, okay, this is what they're saying. Is this valid? And again, I think the value added component of this is, if the recommendation applies to other departments, can we take what we've learned from here and apply this in other areas? Is it applicable to ADOT? Is it applicable to parking, for example, in terms of cash handling? Are there recommendations that they make with regards to cash handling that we could apply elsewhere, or anything else? The issuance of any sort of passes that they talk about for Pitt Moyer, does that apply to bus passes, for example? So this was the format is obviously open to suggestion and comment and revision. It's just, I think it's important for the audit committee to take over this monitoring aspect, allow the city management to handle the implementation and let the committee handle the monitoring.
Okay, I think that's an excellent idea, and I'm on board. Jody, have you been able to review this? Excuse me, Director Dickerson, have you been able to take a look at this?
Take a look at it, yes. I got it from Mr. Cardillo either in end of July or August. I sent it to Director Crater, and we had at least one phone conversation and exchanged some emails about what he should be focusing on to fill in on the grid on his end as to whether or not he feels he will and can implement it, those sorts of things. So I have not gotten anything back from him yet. So when he gets back, I was going to add my comments and go back through and edit as needed. So.
All right. Do you need any assistance from this committee? Any further assistance?
No, not at this time. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with Director Trader and schedule meetings so we can collectively review this spreadsheet and start developing a response.
Thank you very much, Jim. This was well done.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Tierney, I think, had her hand up.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
just one more quick comment. I did send it on the 23rd of July, so we are coming up on 60 days.
Yeah.
I understand this is not the only priority for departments, but it has been 60 days. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks a lot.
Good job.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, just for specificity, the management response is intended to be the city manager and the finance director, or I'm sorry, I can't remember now if you had a separate column for the finance director.
Well,
Collectively, my idea, it's a collective management response. Whoever elects to handle that particular area, I defer.
Okay. Yeah. Again,
okay.
yeah. So
I agree.
Yeah. Just so it's a good working tool for city management as well. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the fraud hotline. Mr. City Manager, can you tell the committee anything about the fraud hotline? I don't think we have anything pending. I don't think we've had any recent complaints or calls, but you might be in a better position than I am, not sure.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. We don't have any pending cases. We haven't had any calls. We had one call in the spring. It was actually from, it wasn't a hotline call. It was a fraud call or of that sort. We actually referred it through the hotline so that we would, use the system as it's designed. That's been investigated and was found without basis. So that one was cleared. So we don't have any that are pending or we haven't had calls.
All right. Did we?
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
At the front end of this thing, didn't we decide we were going to get like kind of a summary at the end of each one of these cases? No names, no real a great deal of detail, but just something to the committee.
I don't recall that. I don't have my notes in front of me, but anybody on the committee help me out with this? Anybody else remember? Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
I don't remember, but Mr. Kirshner, are you talking about a written summary versus a verbal summary at our meetings?
I guess it could be either. If it's brought up at a meeting, I would just like to see it institutionalized. So either we are or we are not going to know about these cases. I think it's important for transparency that there's a way that all of us know that the thing is functioning, that a case was heard, that it was properly investigated, and somebody in the city is making that report formally.
Mr. Kirschner, if Ms. Moronsky puts that in her minutes, is that sufficient?
I guess it's up to the committee. I would like to see something. Yeah, I guess that will work.
Well,
Yeah, and maybe I could just describe the process that we took on this particular case. So it actually came into the city, it didn't come through the hotline. So it came to my attention. I immediately notified the chair, Alderman Payon. We decided the course of action that we would take on the case. It was investigated by the police department. As I said, it was found without basis. We reported that back to all parties that were involved. And that was sort of the end of it.
I guess that's not really a hotline complaint per se.
no, it wasn't.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We ended up, I personally sent it through the hotline process just so we, followed that. So they had records of it, but yeah, they didn't get involved. They didn't take the call. It came into the city through the department. So that's how that was handled.
I think had it been a hotline call, it would have come into either the city manager or myself. When it's from the hotline, I am the one who looks it over, decides whether, this is something that is not worth our following up on, or perhaps meets the threshold of investigating. At that point, I pretty much turn it over to the city manager. We'll talk about it at the end of, whatever investigation's been done and make a decision. That's pretty much the procedure that we followed in these before. I'm happy to say there haven't been very many complaints to the point where I almost wonder if it's worth our continuing to pay these folks. The hotline people that run the hotline certainly haven't done anything wrong. It's just that their complaints have been few and far between.
Mr. Chair, at the front end, we talked about that whole thing about something lands in your lap, and what we were talking about, and I thought we concluded on, that you would report that there had been a hotline complaint. Its basic nature, maybe a topic, so it could be identified in the future, or we could look back and say, yes, we did. Just something as a checks and balances, I believe Ms. Mossick and myself were the ones that led that conversation.
Yeah, I think I remember. Now that one I think I remember, and I think you're correct. We can do it. It's just that there hasn't been a lot of business there.
I understand. No, what I'm saying is I think it protects you. It gives some transparency to the process. And I thought we actually had some written procedures for this whole thing, did we not?
Yes,
I don't recall.
Yeah,
there are written procedures. They were provided by City Manager Sutherland in
By the company.
September of 2019 to the committee.
Right.
And we accepted the procedures that City Manager Sutherland had documented. They were included as part of the minutes for the documents for today's meeting. So there's 4 bullets there.
Okay. Well, we will.
I just think it's important that we follow the procedures. This is, kind of a quasi-legal matter. And I think it protects you, that somebody doesn't sit there and say, yeah, Fred, if you're his buddy, he doesn't give it any visibility or anything like that. It's just, let's get these things out in the open and by consensus come to the conclusion that they're resolved properly. Okay, thank you.
Well, how does the committee feel about a written opinion? It's probably got to be confidential, consistent with the rest of the hotline. To a large extent, at least confidential. And I had in mind something that'd be very, very basic. I mean, the last one Dave and I handled, the non-hotline complaint, we probably could have written something up in a paragraph. It was very straightforward, and ultimately we decided that it simply didn't pass the muster of anything having been done wrong, or certainly unethical or fraudulent or anything of the kind.
Well, there's 3 attorneys sitting here listening to this, and whatever you guys decide, I think we should do. I just think it's important to have some sort of, written documentation. Say this was looked at. This is what the conclusion was, and at least have the audit committee know about it and be done with it. Well, I don't want to create more paperwork or steal any more electrons.
Yeah, I'll be guarding those electrons, that's for sure. Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I definitely respect Mr. Kirchner's concern and suggestions, but I don't know your last point about creating more work. I would ask, if I could kindly ask, since he's on the call, our city attorney, if within the city system, do we have a review process that you're comfortable with for the fraudulent hotline? And if not, what would you suggest, if you can answer that today or not?
Well, we have, thank you for that. We have a review process. I get the contractor's monthly statement of what complaints came in. I'm also part of the review process for the fraud, waste, and abuse complaints, and assist the city manager and the administration with investigation and review of those matters, and providing the legal support, legal opinions. The issue we have with adding another data point is that we're quickly running out of staff to do that kind of thing. So if we'd be happy to do that, if somebody could set up an Excel spreadsheet, we could fill it in, without too much problem. But if we've got to do something more than just report, then we've got to figure out who's going to be in charge of that. Because right now that's not something that's part of the process, other than the city manager's reports. I know we do a monthly report to the city manager as well. We could possibly include it there, and the city manager can report that out. I guess we don't have a problem finding a way to do it. It's just, I need 2 more hands to figure, to add it to the list. Now, the second part of that is we have not had any cases this year since I've been here, since December. So, there's probably another question as to whether or not we're getting what we need out of that particular contractor. And maybe there's another reporting mechanism that can be reviewed that we're already doing that may be more robust. But, I trust that if we get something, we'll report it to whomever needs to get it, so we're prepared to do that. Thankfully, there haven't been a lot.
Yeah, we had a small flurry, I guess, when we first started this, but really haven't had anything to speak of since that time. I almost wonder, Mr. City Manager, if we shouldn't send out another notice, just a reminder that the fraud hotline exists, and here's the number to call if you think you see anything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was having that same thought as we were talking, about the fact that we haven't received any, that maybe people have forgotten that we even have that system. We probably should do that quarterly or semi-annually to remind people that we do have this system in place, and that it's available to them if they see anything.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone on the committee have any problem with that, or any comment?
Yes, I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. We've had, what, one case through the fraud hotline?
I think there may have been more than that initially, but not many more. You know, 1, 2, 3, no more than that.
Well,
And then
my experience with these things is people that really have a concern can probably ask their boss and say, you know, or they can ask around or find out how to report it. What I am concerned, I think City Manager Gerald would flash back to his Navy career. I don't want to see this thing weaponized. Which it easily can. It can easily happen.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I understand we want to make sure that everybody knows about it, but maybe a once a year reminder or something that is printed on the leave and earnings statement or something like that. But I don't want to see it on the side of buses. Okay.
No, I think once a year is fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Pardillo.
originally, after the implementation of the hotline, there was a button on the homepage of the city website. Of course, that's since been replaced due to pandemic concerns. And you know, I don't dictate how the website is presented, but maybe at some point, you know, it can be a little more visible to outside sources. That's all. I think maybe the decline, there may be a correlation between the decline in reports and the change in the website.
Well, I think the original purpose was for city employees only, but I'm happy to open it up to members of the public. Well, that's where our last complaint came from. So, you know, if you want to do that too, that's fine. Again, I don't want to, as Al put it, weaponize this thing, and we may be doing that based on comments that many of us on the council get. There'd be a lot of people who would only be too happy to complain about supposed fraud and waste and that sort of thing. So I don't want to waste staff time over complaints that are not really based in fact. But hey, listen, I'm here to listen. I'm here to implement whatever you folks want to do. I'm satisfied with just putting out another notice. You want to put it on the website? Fine. It's okay with me. Beyond that, I'm not sure it would be helpful, but Mr. City Manager, what do you think about that?
Well, I think we definitely need to at least do an annual, and it's probably overdue, an annual refresher for everybody, notification that this is available. And I'll take a look and see where it is on the city's website now. Maybe it should be under the city manager page rather than on the first page that you go to. You know, all visitors go to Annapolis.gov. I'm not sure it should be on that page, but maybe one of the internal pages. But we'll take a look at that.
Okay. I mean, we're not exactly looking for business, to be honest.
Right.
But, you know, if we get any, we'll darn sure take care of it. And I think that the city employees ought to know that we're there, we exist, and their complaints will be confidential. And you know, they would be protected to that extent. So
Question, Jim, you said there was some bullets, 4 bullets that you provided at one point about that topic.
City Manager Sutherland came up with the procedures.
Right.
They were part of the September 2019 Audit Committee meeting. And then Chairman Payon included them in the documents provided for today's meeting.
Okay, I missed that. I'm sorry. So, okay.
That's okay. There was an attachment. There were like 4 attachments with today's meeting.
Okay.
And that was one of them. So
Okay.
the 4 bullets on what are the procedures. And I believe the function of the audit committee was to just get a number report, like on a periodic basis. Hey, we had 4 calls come in, 3 were disposed of, 1 is pending.
Exactly. I mean, again,
That fraud one was the last attachment, Mr. Kirshner, to that
Thank you very
packet
much.
that got sent out.
thank you, Matt.
All right, let's see, next order of business. Wait a minute. I lost-
Alderwoman Tierney has a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Just so this doesn't come up again, could we have some reconciliation between that and what our city attorney spoke of as the internal process? I don't think they, I can't marry them up unless somebody can help me with that.
Well, this was, I mean, when we decided to do this, what was contemplated was totally internal. I mean, we were, it was from employees. We were going to keep it confidential within the 4 walls of City Hall and investigate if there were possible criminal implications. Of course, we'd call the police department in on it. But the idea was that the employees would be protected. Their identity would be protected. They shouldn't have to fear retribution from whomever they're blowing the whistle on. Now, none of the complaints we've gotten have been, there was not a weaponizing situation involved. They were, I don't think we haven't found anybody that was liable, if you will. We haven't found that any of the complaints were founded, well-founded. But that isn't to say we wouldn't in the future. So the complaint we got from the outside must have been off of the website. And that's why I asked if we wanted to include the website, because originally that wasn't the idea behind this. I'm happy to do that for members of the public if that's the sense of the committee. It seems logical to me, but as I said, that was not the original purpose of setting this up. This was strictly for a whistleblower. Hey, my boss is pocketing the money, or gave this one a raise because he or she done them a favor. Their kids play softball together and they're buddies and that kind of thing.
Can we put that on the agenda for next month? I think we should all think about that and bring it to closure. I'm not prepared to decide one way or the other, but I would say that if a member of the public becomes aware of some fraud or waste or abuse, that they should have access to the city. I don't know what the alternative would be if it wasn't on the hotline complaint, but I think we should probably all just step back and think about that and call it, put it on for a vote next meeting, please.
Well, I think what you said is completely logical and tells me that maybe you are ready to vote, because I think what you said makes a lot of sense, and that's sort of what we've done de facto. And I don't mind putting it on the website at all. But Mr. Manager.
Yeah, it looks to me like it already is open to the public because it's on the, it is on the website. It's under services, but it doesn't differentiate at all between internal and external. It's, this line's available, and anybody that sees any waste, fraud, and abuse can certainly report it. I don't see where it's internal now only. I think it's available for anybody that wants to use it currently.
Well, it's important that we're all on the same page. I mean, we
Right,
shouldn't be having a big debate if that's the case. If that's the way that works, I'm satisfied.
Mr. City Attorney, do you see any legal implications about us opening this up to the public?
No.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's move on and we'll keep it the way it is as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Kirshner, if you insist, we can certainly put it on the agenda again for next month to reconsider. It's fine with me.
No, I mean, if that's the way it is and we all understand that and agree to it, there's nothing really to discuss any further.
Well, do we all agree? I don't think there's anything for me to take a vote on this, but it seems to be certainly the sense of the committee that we go ahead with the way it is and, open it up to the public. Is that correct, committee members? So
Correct.
anybody thinks differently? It's
Matt,
okay if you do.
Thank you, Mr. Kirshner. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
might, is the I haven't read the contract, but is there right now a prohibition on the public using it?
No.
Okay, so your consideration to open it seems to be not consistent with what is actually going on. It's already open for the public.
Yeah, that's exactly
and-
right.
So there's nothing to
And-
vote on, is my.
Correct.
I don't have a copy of the contract. Maybe, Mr. City Manager, do you think you might in a file somewhere have a copy of the contract?
Well, if I don't, then our purchasing group definitely would have a copy of
Okay,
it.
it's Lighthouse something or other.
Yeah,
Lighthouse.
I'm sure we can find the information, but,
Okay.
and I'm sure that we did not intend to not make it used by the public. It was for both purposes, which is why we would have had it on the website to begin with. I don't know why the website was changed or that button was relocated, but it was intended to be both, although primarily an employee tool, but
Okay,
there was nothing prohibiting it from going to the public.
Yep, that contract was written for Lighthouse to pick up the phone and take the information. It didn't
that
matter where it was coming from.
that's exactly right. That's all they do. They don't investigate. They don't do any of that. As we found, our city manager found out the hard way with the last complaint. All right, let's move on. New business. Committee vacancies. Hillary sent us a little something this morning, but I didn't get a chance to read it. Hillary, are you there?
I am.
Tell us a little bit about vacancies.
Sure. So unlike all the other boards and commissions in the city, the citizen members of this board are appointed by the alderman. So the mayor appoints the alderman to this board, and then those three aldermen or alderpersons would select the citizen member. So you have two vacancies, and the code doesn't specify how they're selected, but the three alderperson members are to select the candidates.
Okay. Ellie, Rhonda, we got some work to do. Do you have any resumes right now? I understand that one or two have been sent in, but
I looked in my folder this weekend and I didn't see any unless they were sent hard copy and they're in my office. I'll go check this week.
Okay, I'll check with the mayor's office also and see if Will Rowell or someone else may have been directed to him.
Yeah.
At the time, for some time, he was in charge of boards and commissions. I understand you are now, but I'll just make sure it isn't sitting on somebody else's desk. Jim, I understand that you have somebody in mind, and you, there were two that you had in mind. Is the one sent in a resume as far as you know?
Thank you. I did reach out to two people. I did confirm one person did send in an application through the city website to the boards and commissions email.
Okay.
Okay.
And I believe that was in the month of August. The second person, I did not confirm that an application was submitted. So.
Okay. Well, Hillary may very well be on your desk if it didn't come in till August. So I don't know that they would have redirected that to your home. I'm quite sure that it would not have been. So
Right.
perhaps that's there. I think we, I'd like to act on that as soon as possible. But we'll look into it. We'll get it done. Okay, the next item on the agenda is educational topic. We have the city manager here, and I've asked the city manager to say a few words about what he does and how he views our role. This is part of former Alderman Littman's agenda and his idea, frankly, to have a speaker, albeit a brief speaker, at every meeting. And our first one will be our city manager. Dave,
Okay,
get away.
thank you. So as I was thinking about what the city manager does and what the duties and the responsibilities are, I actually went to the city charter to look at what are the assigned duties and responsibilities. And they actually pretty accurately reflect what the actual day-to-day duties and responsibilities. Imagine that we actually follow our charter. So I will just review those from the charter because I think they're pretty instructive on what the powers and duties and responsibilities are of the positions that are in the city. So from the city charter, there shall be a city manager in the office of the mayor. So that's important because people think that there's an office of the city manager and an office of the mayor. And the office of the city manager is actually part of the office of the mayor as per the charter. So there shall be a city manager in the office of the mayor, who shall be the chief administrative officer of the city. The city manager shall be the direct subordinate of the mayor and shall have supervisory authority over the department directors, all except the city attorney. City attorney is a parallel position with the city manager. The city manager shall have the following additional powers and duties. Number one, to administer the day-to-day operations of the municipal government and oversee the delivery of municipal services. So as I mentioned, that's for everything except the law office operations. That's separate, but all the other departments are all under the city manager. Exercise supervisory authority over the department directors. That kind of goes hand in hand with the first one. Direct the operations of city government, that as well. Supervise the preparation of the city budget. So that's, as you know, a big part of the position, and that's why the city managers rely so much on the finance director throughout the year, and especially during the budget preparation time. To advise, and I thought this was interesting, to advise the mayor and city council in the formation of policy. So usually during my career, I've thought of the city council as being responsible for policy and legislation, but this is to advise the mayor and city council in the formation of policy and the implementation plans to address demands of municipal services, enhance the quality of life, and strengthen the economic vitality of the city. That's a lot there. That's a lot to take on and handle. To perform such duties not inconsistent with this charter as may be delegated by the mayor. So that's other duties as assigned that can be assigned by the mayor for things that he or she wants to have done. To provide a monthly status report summarizing recent noteworthy activities of city operations, including department and office updates, performance management milestones, and activities of the mayor's office. So this was something that was just added, I think just maybe 2 years ago. It was while City Manager Sutherland was still here because the monthly status report had been discontinued due to sort of lack of interest. But then it was reinstated and was put in the charter as a requirement of the city manager. To adjust parking rates in city-owned parking garages and parking lots. So that's an authority that, again, this is fairly recent, that was delegated from the council to the city manager within certain limits and guidelines. To supervise the daily operations of the Office of Management Information Technology, to supervise daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy, and to supervise the daily operations of Human Resources. I'm not sure why they broke out those three separately as being specific things that to supervise the daily operations, because I feel like I sort of supervise the daily operations of all the other departments as well. But they broke those three out separately as additional duties. And then under the human resources, it's administering the civil service system, conducting investigations and examinations for appointment or promotion, and administering certain other activities related to the payment, benefits, training, discipline, and retirement of the city officials and employees. So those are the duties and responsibilities. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but basically it's just overseeing the operations of the government, except for the law office, which is.
How do you see your role with the audit committee?
So I talked, I think, a little bit about that before.
Or the
when
audit
we were
committee's
talking about
role and
performance measures, yeah. So I think the departments are, we have good directors and we have the ability to hire good directors because there's people that want to come to Annapolis and work. So I think we have a talented group of department directors who know their subject matters and are professionals and do a great job. So I think that they have the responsibility for running their departments. The city manager supervises them and makes sure they're on the right track, but also provides the resources and tools for them to do their job and to advise of any issues that as they may come up. But then I think, yeah, go ahead. Was somebody going to say something? Oh, but then I think it's important that the audit committee have the ability to oversee all of that. As I mentioned, when we were talking about performance measures, to sort of be the quality assurance for the operations of the government. So I think it's an important interface between the departments and the audit committee, that the city manager be in that role of the prime point of contact for the audit committee. And as these discussions need to occur, whether it's performance measures or just operations, that the city manager be involved with all of those discussions and certainly be welcome to the input and the recommendations and the thoughts of the audit committee. And that's why I think the audit committee is really important. And as we can get strengthened and running the way we all want it to run, that it'll become a real asset to the city manager, but also to city operations.
Okay, questions? Mr. Cardillo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Jarrell. It's really helpful. I have a question for you with regards to the performance standards. Is it your opinion that the department managers are accountable for the performance standards and that the city council is the one who determines whether these departments are meeting those standards, or do you feel it's the city manager's function to determine whether those standards are being met?
I think it's the city council's responsibility to approve what the performance measures are. And then it's the department's responsibility to meet those standards. And if they're not, then the city manager needs to intervene to see why they're not being met and see what actions could be taken to ensure that they are met. Because basically the departments develop those standards, the performance measures and the standards. They present them to the council approves them. So that means the departments have the responsibility to live up to and to meet those standards that they've provided for approval by the council. So I think that the departments are the ones that need to meet those performance standards. And if not, then the city manager needs to take corrective action.
Okay, so the determination as to whether those standards are being met is made by the department manager, and do you believe that you need to concur or disagree with them prior to the action by the city council?
Well, I think, again, I think the city council's role is to approve them. So once they're approved, then it's the department's responsibility to meet those.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Only if you can see this. Let me see. Can you see that?
Sort of.
David can direct a city manager, Gerald, can you see it?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so, what part of that is wrong? I mean, where my dotted line really is where the audit, I'm assuming the general audit will do sort of the nuts and bolts, but the audit committee is sort of reviewing the process. I kind of want to draw a circle around it, or am I off base?
No, I think that's right. I'm having kind of a hard time reading it because it's so small.
Oh,
Let me see if I can just make you the full screen, because I've got all the tiles.
If you
Oh.
change it to speaker view, then you should have hers as the big screen.
can you see it? Yeah, I'm reading it backwards.
There we go. Okay, so general audit, finance.
Well, they report to finance, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so we're down at the bottom, and I wasn't sure if we sort of we're quality control, making sure the process basically happens. So it's almost like I could draw a circle around. I know.
Yeah, so I see performance measures twice. Okay, so the performance measures 03720, that is right. That's reviewed and approved by the
Yeah. So then you
council.
got them. There
Yeah,
they
so
are. And so then this is what Jim asked, is who does this?
right.
And I'm hearing that they do.
The departments do, right.
The departments do. I know my lines probably aren't working right, but okay, so that's going on.
But I think there probably should be a line from reporting down to the audit committee so that the audit committee gets that report as well. Maybe it's a dotted, not a
Okay.
solid line like going over to the city manager. But yeah, from the reporting down
Okay.
to the audit committee, a dot, yeah.
Okay. I can't do this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And so then we report to who? We,
Well, I guess you report back to the council, so that,
Yes.
okay. 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 All right. I'm really just doing this for my own, but, okay. Does that make sense?
it does to me, yeah.
Well, that's important. Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe I'll formalize it or something and we can put it to the minutes or something.
Okay. Mr. Kirschner.
Unmute here. For Mr. Gerald, you and I met on the 14th of February. I left you some documents. One of them was a program review document. And I was wondering, do you consider that fair game and something that we ought to build on in our interactions with the departments?
Yeah. And as we talked about, because we had at least, 2 or 3 meetings, and then COVID hit and we kind of discontinued, or you had some other issues. I would like to start that back so that we could figure out a plan for that, because I do think that's important. I think it's worthwhile, and I think it's a great program that will help the city.
The point paper that I sent the chair builds on that, and I'll be sending that out this afternoon or whenever. I just got to clean it up a little bit. But I just want to get your view before I push that thing.
Yeah, I think that's really a best practice that other cities are using and are probably somewhat ahead of us on that. We're probably way ahead of us on that, but yeah, I think that's very worthwhile.
Okay, I'll get that out. Thank you.
And we should meet again.
That would be
All
great.
right.
If you have the time.
Are there any other questions? Mr. City Manager, thank you very much for the presentation. Let's move on quickly. We're winding down. I skipped over the Subcommittee Ordinance 030-17 update on Article 15 of the city charter. And the reason for that is I have not been able to meet with my two colleagues on the committee here to hopefully finalize the legislation. We've talked this and talked it to death here at various meetings. I thought we were ready to go, but I think since I'm seeking sponsorship of all three of the council members on the committee, that they ought to be thoroughly familiar with it and they should certainly approve it. Obviously, they're not going to put their names on something that they don't totally understand and approve of, and we'll hopefully settle whatever differences we might have and get this thing filed. Jim, you did excellent work on this, and I thank you again. You know, what I have in mind is something, and I think we all do, something very, very similar to what you had recommended with Al. But we will get back to you at the next meeting, let you know where we're going with that. Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've been COVID handicapped here, but I have no problem with the legislation and I do not want to hold it up. So you have my full sponsorship and I'm sure it will go through, you know, the correct channels if there's any amending.
Okay, Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I had one tiny stylistic thing with something very minute. I can't recall what it was. The other thing is, just want to make sure the conversations we've had today, and I can't recall exact language of the ordinance. Would anything that we've talked about today that we're going to move forward on, does that affect the legislation the way it's written? Mr. City Attorney, can you help us out here?
I'm sorry, ma'am. What was your question again?
That's okay. I'm saying, as far as the legislation is concerned, based on the conversations and discussions and things we've talked about today, does that affect anything and the way the legislation looks now?
It shouldn't. I don't see
Okay.
an effect, but you know, we will be interested in helping you draft whatever is needed.
Mr.
Thank
City
you.
Attorney, it's already drafted, and I mean, I'll provide you with a copy. Your department did a fine job in coming up with it, but there may be a couple of tweaks, as my colleagues have said.
Yep.
I don't think it does, in my opinion. I mean, we've talked about the legislation would, you know, empower us to do a little bit more than the present legislation does, and the things we've talked about, I don't think are really along the same lines. The things we've talked about today, I don't think are on the same lines, so I think we're pretty good with it. Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
I can't recall. It may have had something, one minor thing might have had something to do with usage of the words always, never, those absolutes. That might have been it, but I
believe you did mention that to me. So
yeah, that's always my crawl, sticks in my crawl. Whenever we use absolutes, I'm usually try to stay away from those.
I agree. You did say that, and it the way it's worded now, if the city manager didn't show up, we couldn't have a meeting, I think, or something like that. So it was a good catch. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Person.
The only thing I have left is well, we do have reports, but we can skip those till next time. The one exception is the quarterly report. Kim, where are we on the second quarter report? Kim, hello.
Hello, this is Kim.
Hey, how are you?
Good. The second quarter report is something I drafted and sent previously as a draft, so it still has a draft mark.
Okay.
And it was also included with the distribution for the materials for today's meeting.
Okay, so we're very close to being ready to go on that. Is that correct?
Kim, you're on mute again.
Okay, I'm back. It's out of my hands and up to you all to tell me to take the draft stamp off.
Okay.
So as soon as we can get the approval by the committee, we can finalize it, send it to you.
All right. With the committee's permission, I will take a quick look at this. And it seems like it was acceptable as I got it, but frankly, I haven't looked at it in probably since July. Let me look at it again, and with your permission, if it seems appropriate, I'll go ahead and file it as my quarterly report. Yes, Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, Kim Ms. Maronsky did an excellent job with the report. Thank you so very much.
Yep. All right. Do I have the committee's permission to go ahead and file that with perhaps some, I don't anticipate any more than some minor editing, if that. It's okay to go ahead and file it.
You need a motion? Or?
I don't think I need a motion. All right. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Kim, when's our next meeting date?
Okay, the next meeting date, if you don't skip, is October 19.
All right. Yes, Mr. Kirshner.
Just a couple quick ones. While we were in session, Ms. Raftovich did send the metrics spreadsheet for the departments. So we all have those.
You mean 03720 or?
No, she sent a spreadsheet. Let me see. At 8:21 this morning, I believe it was. Hold on. Yes, at 8:21 this morning, she sent the attachment with the annual. I guess it is a piece of legislation, R1720.
Right, it's a
Yeah,
resolution.
the subject is Performance Standards 2020. So it satisfied what I had asked for at our last meeting.
Yeah, bingo, bango, we have it.
Yes, and it looks, again, it's what the the departments are saying, and we can help them along. The second thing is from my wife, who wonders if we could consider at some point changing the time and day. Just to me, the day of our meeting in spring and fall and summer, it's nice to have 3 and 4 day weekends. If we could consider at our next meeting possibly moving our meetings to a Tuesday, it might be worth doing. When the committee first got established, we had commuters, we had all kinds of things going on, and we tried to take everybody's schedules into account. I'm not sure that's needed any longer. Maybe we could shift to Tuesday. Just food for thought. And the last thing I've got is I'm curious, Mr. Chairman, do you as chair or does the mayor send a thank you and acknowledgement of the service of Mr. Littman and Ms. Mussuk for their service to the committee?
I believe that's my job, and I have done that with Alderman Littman. I don't believe I've sent a thank you to
Ms. Mussuk.
Yeah. So I've done. I probably did with Julie, but I'll do it again. I'll make sure that he's
Now,
proper for her service.
Mr. Littman's letter of resignation, I guess that went to everybody. It's kind of a detailed, it had a lot of things that I think the committee ought to pause to consider. And I wonder if you want to do that actively or passively. I think we've all seen the letter. Can we maybe spend a minute in our next meeting and see if there's any of his thoughts that we want to pursue?
Well, we can spend time on anything the committee wants to, that you find to be relevant, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already implemented a couple of the things that he suggested in today's meeting. We had a speaker, I tried to adjust the agenda to the one that he had prepared months ago, but frankly, anytime you prepare an agenda 6 months, a year ahead of time, it's going to be subject to a lot of changes. And this certain, because when he did that, there was no pandemic, there was none of those things.
Well, he resigned in July, I believe, and his letter, in my conversation with him, I think he spent a lot of time to carefully prepare something that would be useful to the committee in terms of his parting ideas. And all I'd like to be able to do is, I think any one of us would want to look him in the eye and say, thank you for your ideas, and know that they were seen and, considered. That's all. Thank you.
Sure, I'll be happy to follow up. Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I saw on the agenda number 6, internal audit plan. So I guess we're not going to talk about that, which is fine. The other thing, Mr. Kirschner, I appreciate your suggestion on Tuesday, but my husband has to go in. He's a senior accountant at the board, and he has to go in on Tuesdays, which means the e-learning for my grandson falls on me in the mornings on Tuesday. So I got a personal issue.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to throw out an exact
jump
date.
off of here and e-learn him and get him straightened out for an hour and a half, and he's 5. So
My thought is that
Tuesday's a bit more problematic for me.
my thought is that we just
That's just a personal.
reconsider the date. Is there a day that's more conducive to us that isn't Friday or Monday?
I would assume Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday would be satisfactory. Al?
That's all I'm saying.
All right,
You may
Jim.
want to rethink that. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the things that may be a relief for all committee members is, I believe one of the last actions we approved at our February meeting at Pitt Moyer was to move to a bi-monthly, every 2-month meeting. So I would expect when we circulate the calendar for calendar year 21, that we will have only 6 meetings on the calendar. And I believe that may alleviate some of the external burdens on committee members.
Well, I think, I agree. I'm well aware of every other month, but I was just doing every month at this point because of the special circumstances. I took the liberty of doing that without committee approval, but hey, you want to wait till October? I mean, as I said, I may be the chair and the leader of the committee, but I'm only one vote. So I think we need to meet every month at this point, but I'm subject to whatever you guys think, to be honest, on an issue like this. Ellie, Jim, Al, thoughts?
We can email you our preferences if there's any difference. I just want to throw that out to preserve the ability to have a 3 or 4 day weekend.
Okay.
And as far as
I wish I could.
are you saying that you can't?
One day it will come.
There's no other day other than Monday? Is that what you're saying?
That's just the best for me. I mean, I hate getting up early on Mondays, but I look at the rest of the week, and that's
okay.
We got just a lot happening.
Understand. Fine.
So, and I'm kind of locked into this one. So
okay.
But I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
I will tell Mrs. Kirschner.
We'll leave that up
If
to
she'd
you,
like to
Al.
help with the e-learning, she can certainly do that.
Ms.
I think
Dickinson,
I'd help on that one.
Madam Finance Director.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I'm not sure about the committee rules, but if you took action, I think you took formal action to go every other month. You took a vote. right? If you're going
Yeah.
to go back to your original or do something different, you should probably take a vote, and it probably should be in a public forum, as was the other. I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, then well, technically, I assume our next meeting will be in November then. Does anyone have a problem with that?
I would ask Kim or someone to go back through the notes from the motion that we approved in February and determine when that took effect. Does it take effect at the beginning of the fiscal or the beginning of the calendar? I do not recall.
Well, either way, I think we're past the beginning of the fiscal year, and I'm quite sure
Okay,
with calendar
if I
year.
can answer that spontaneously, is that all right if I jump in?
Thank you, Kim.
I think that because vote was taken in my absence, I reviewed the minutes of that carefully when I came back to work in March. And so one of the things that I and Chair Payon discusses, that was effective immediately. Now,
Yeah.
however, of course, we're talking about the alternating of the months for the meetings. Then, of course, meetings did not happen because of COVID. So in fact, because then August you didn't meet at all, you've actually kept on target of meeting
6
on average once every 2 months.
Okay.
So now if you were to meet at the next prescribed.
We lost you, Kim. Can you repeat that?
Hello?
I think what she was going to say is if we meet the next prescribed meeting, which was an October date, then you're going every month. And the next prescribed date in November would be every other month. So if you're going to keep every other month, it would be November. But if you're going to go back and meet in October now, you probably want to do some kind of formal action.
Okay, well, let's do the November date then. And I think, let me just get my calendar out.
Mr. Chair,
Been doing the third
I just
Monday.
want to make,
Yeah,
I mean, if I can handle the every other Tuesday, it's just, I mean, if it's every month Tuesday, it's a bit much, but I mean, if we can talk about if we want to change them to Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Our calendars are just kind of all over the place. And then working full-time for Anne Arundel County Public Schools, that comes first. That definitely has to come first. But we can certainly explore other days, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, if we're going to meet every other month.
well, I was going to send a memo around asking everybody what their best date other than a Monday, and I presume a Friday, Al, is that right?
Yeah, I'll withdraw that. I mean, it's one of those things that I thought everybody would just sit there and say, yeah, it makes sense. If all it takes is one person that can't make it, we have to stay on that schedule. I think I'll withdraw my proposal.
All right.
But I would like to speak to
explore
this
the
every other month
possibility.
thing. We have way too much going on, and we're going at a snail's pace. Too many things all along with this committee have slipped till we'll take that up next meeting. There isn't time. We've got to get going. And I would call and ask that the agenda for the November meeting, which it seems like we are locked into, that the November agenda reconsider whether we're going to meet bi-monthly.
I agree with that. I mean, we can always, if we're really not that busy, we can always skip a month. I mean, I think that's within the chairman's discretion. And, if I don't call a meeting for any given month, that I'm pretty sure that's happened before. And, it can happen again. I don't think it's etched in stone that we absolutely have to meet every single month. I mean, even without this legislation.
You can call a meeting and just not have a quorum.
Okay. Well, that's not exactly the way I'd like to do it, but you're correct. But at any rate, is there any further discussion about that? What I'll do is I'll send a memo to everybody just to see if there's another day of the week that they think they would be available, and we'll leave it at that for now. How's that?
I'm withdrawing that. If you wish to do it, obviously you can. What I am concerned about is that the forward motion of this committee needs to accelerate, not decelerate.
Yeah,
And I honestly believe we should meet monthly. And I'm asking that that be put on the agenda for the November meeting.
okay. I agree with you, but I'm the chair, and I'm one vote. So if you come prepared to discuss that next time, whether you think you want to reconsider that or just redo that motion, then that's fine with me. In the meantime, do you want to meet in October or November? I'll put it to the committee. There's nothing that stops me from calling a special meeting, and if you want to call the October meeting a special meeting, I don't really care. Anybody have any thoughts? Do you want to meet next month? I kind of think we need to, but I agree with Al. But matter of fact, I do think we need to. But
You're the chair, sir. Call a special meeting in October.
Concur.
Yeah. Okay.
I concur with Mr. Kirschner and with
Okay.
you as well.
Then
We have the calendar that says bi-monthly. If you call a special meeting, so be it. And
okay.
strive to get a quorum at the special meeting.
Dave, Jody, any problems?
Nope, no problems.
Madam Director?
I don't think so. Kim gave me those those monthly dates the other day that we had originally set up at the beginning of the year, and I popped them all into my calendar. So.
All right. What is the October date? Is
The 19th.
19th? Yeah. Okay. We will meet again on October 19th and leave it at that. I'll call a special meeting. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing nothing, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Kirschner.
Sorry, we're a little bit late, but all right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? You can stay here all day if you want.